Happy lunchtime. Just wanted to come say hi. Yay. I'm MK Fleming. I like to think of myself as your protest mom, and this is the Denver Protest News Weekend Roundup. First things first, though, on this day in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Then in 1495, he committed genocide. So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on stolen land and do a little bit more than that. If you were rather, instead of just throwing out the words, I would like actions to match it, and I encourage you all to do the same. I know we're going to be making donations today to several Indigenous organizations, and all of the links you will find in the broadcast later, since a lot of people will read huge threads but don't have time to watch and listen to the video. So, and that's cool. That is not, that's why I try to do both. I don't think I had time to go back on Friday and add anything, but I will try to be better about that today because it is Indigenous Peoples Day. There's a lot of good content out there. There are lots and lots and lots of amazing documentaries and movies that help contextualize the current and ongoing struggle for freedom that we can all basically relate to on one level or another. But before we circle back to that in the comments, it's time to talk about booty. Yeah, op sexy time. Maybe not. We're going to say first, so last week we talked a little bit about having an ass and then covering your ass, which then led to uncovered asses on my Twitter timeline. Well, here's one thing someone had to say about it.
And they do have beautiful asses. I love all the asses. I love the climate, or the generation that's now, and their sex positive, body positive mindset is fucking amazing.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you to everyone who jumped on the timeline and said F you to the QAnon people who are now actively all over my page taking pictures and sharing. Now, from my end, I knew that this could come because there are two options you really have to make early on as a protester. I'm either going to be public facing and open about the fact that I do this, or I'm not. And never the twain shall meet. So it seems to me now that we need to have a conversation about not just asses, but wiping them. And that specifically, I mean, is an app called EXIF, EXIF. It's free. And please, if you're not already doing this, you need to start doing this. Every single time you post a photo from a sensitive location or a protest location, which I don't know why you'd be doing it from a protest location, but anyway, take a second to remove all metadata from that photo using the EXIF app. It's a little annoying. It takes about 10 seconds start to finish, but kind of like the 10 seconds it takes to put on a condom, boy, in the long run, it'll do you a lot more good than harm. Those 10 seconds are worth the wait. They are good they are good OPSEC, and good OPSEC is OPSEXy time. So yeah, I'm obsessed with OPSEC for this reason. There's a lot of information that just floats around the internet. And back in my day, y'all, because I'm old, see all these my tiger stripes? I will not, I leave them there to remind you how old I actually am, because I'm bragging about the fact that I'm still alive. Yay me! And the reason this matters so much is that some rules have really changed. The expectation of privacy has fundamentally changed. Where they're going to come to look for you and the tools they're going to use to do it, not so much. A lot of basic things are very much still in play. The things that we need to be careful about is what we hand over to them, which is why I said, if you go into this canned soup drive over the weekend, I went through all the trouble of showing you how to remove your fingerprints from a can on Friday. And that's one level of OPSEC. The next level is showing up in a public place where there are lots of cameras. And we know that they're everywhere, especially around the Capitol. And we also know that there are undercovers all over the place taking pictures with their phones, as well as streamers, some of whom directly offer up their footage to the police to comb, cut, and use. And what we know that we can assume that they're doing with it in the RTCIC, remember the facial recognition software that is now used to combine all metadata for all people who are coming through Denver at any point. So imagine them taking and using that facial recognition software for every single face that they get in the streamer's streams. One of the reasons that I support off metadata so sorry, the Off Meta Productions so much, Dylan Beresford, is the fact that he almost never gets protesters' faces. He's there capturing the action, literally being your eyes on the ground, seeing the things that you want to see but can't quite tune into, as opposed to trying to capture the faces or the reactions or the actions of the people around them. You might stand there hearing hoopla behind you, but the camera the entire time will be on the police in front of you, that police line. So there's a real importance that these streamers serve in the information that they share, and knowing which ones you really want to associate with or trust, which is not to ding any of the others. It's just, this is the first place I go when I hear something's going on. I'm like, where's Dylan? And I pull it up. And that is probably why I missed the clip from Cut the Plastic about the shooting. So now that we've talked about wiping asses a little bit with Op Sexy Time, and if you're going to post an ass, I strongly recommend you do it, because the odds of you being identified by your ass alone, next to none. The odds of you being identified by the bedspread that you're sitting on top of, especially if it came from Costco and they sold thousands of them last year, again, next to none. You are much more likely in this new digital world to be caught using the metadata you didn't think to scrub, rather than the identifying details in the picture that you posted from your anonymous Twitter account. Again, your level of OPSEC is up to you. I'm not here to criticize it, and I'm not here to tell you what to feel, how to deal, or how to protest. I am simply offering up the best advice I possibly can on when to cover your ass and when to not worry about letting it hang out in public. Plus, y'all know, I know what happens on horny Twitter at night because I go there too. So does my husband. It's how we get worked up for, playing with prostates and fun stuff. He's been hiding from me ever since I brought these in this bedroom, by the way, y'all. He's just like, oh, hi, bye. Ran off, bless his heart. So everybody say a prayer for my husband. But with that, I got to tell you, love those butts. I love the body positivity, and body positivity and horny Twitter can mutually coexist alongside decent OPSEC. And the difference really does tend to be metadata and usage of a VPN. If you're doing those two things, wiping the metadata before you post, especially when you're in your home, and using a VPN to hide your IP address at any given moment, or either on your computer or on your phone, that's really the maximum I would recommend worrying about if you do not intend to be public facing. There are millions of rabbit holes that you can go down, but if you're doing those two, if those two things are covered, then the odds of you being found and connected, and if they're going to come get you through Twitter, you've just decreased it a whole bunch, because odds are pretty good. You have to operate on the assumption you're already being watched and followed. I do. And I always lead off with that too. I put myself out there to be this public facing figure, not just to be like, if they're watching me, they're less likely being then coming for you. Okay. So from there, wipe your ass before you put it on Twitter, but please don't let that discourage you from putting anything on Twitter. So this talks a little bit about OPSEC and safety. So remember, on Sunday, I said there are streamers that I tend to go to first, which is why I miscut the Plastics direct view of the shooting, which I then clipped and reposted on my Twitter account. Part of the reason that we do this is that I've said before, in a large group situation, particularly a protest that can cover several city blocks simultaneously, it's hard for one side to know what the other side is experiencing, or what the people in the back and the people in the front might be having two totally different chants. To making sure that information is seen and is out there, and that someone is prepared for emergency evacuations like we were. So a big, huge thank you to all the streamers. If you're going to support anyone at this moment, I beg you, throw a little coin to the streamers, throw a little coin to people like Gay Gamers, who go so far out of their way to collect, verify, and then share good information so that everybody on the ground can make good choices. But also, don't forget that the land on which you protest does not belong to us. And let's throw some coin that way too, not just today, but every single day. Speaking of that, I've got nothing negative to say about Saturday. From a safety standpoint, from an OPSEC standpoint, it was a canned soup drive. Separately, there was a counter protest that probably had nothing to do. How would you protest a soup drive? It was like some sort of a rally, and the two people who got into the fight that led to the shooting, they were waiting, as we understand it, waiting in line to get to the rally. Now, there was a second shooting. I've gotten a lot of questions about that. There absolutely was. It was close by, but we have not had any public information about it yet. No news released, kind of like the hostage situation last night at Pig and Snout. That really happened. People are genuinely traumatized from it, but that has not yet made the news either, aside from one DPD tweet acknowledging that it was happening at 19th and Chestnut. So if you were involved in that in some way, I'm terribly sorry. My heart is with you and your family. Please let us know if we can do anything for you. That is horrifying, but I'm really glad to know that my protest kids are okay. So not every single thing that happens is going to be social media available instantaneously, which is why Twitter and Reddit can be so valuable. Also, big thanks to the people who go into Nextdoor, so I don't fucking have to. I hate Nextdoor and I hate all the people. I can't stand Nextdoor. I don't really need to know who my racist neighbors are. I just assume they're everybody, so I don't talk to them. So when we take a look at Saturday and say, well, hey, MK, you said that you weren't going to go because you didn't know the organizers. Correct. I generally, as my own personal OPSEC, do not attend events where I do not know the organizers, because it's not about the organizers. It's about who could have infiltrated and is real interested in someone like me showing up and getting my fingerprints, which are already in the system. But I tell you that to tell you this: there's a level of trust that has to be established. I operate on the assumption that everyone is suspect until I have reason to trust them. And what happened on Saturday was completely uncorrelated to the organizers, to the people at the drive, to the protesters. That had absolutely nothing to do with us. And I'm really proud of that. So please take a minute to give kudos to the organizers who, in the face of incredible drama and adversity, still managed to pull off a fucking canned food drive and have so many people show up. I certainly hope I made it clear on Friday. I wasn't trying to deter anyone from staying home, but I got 4 kids, man. I can't just leave the house when I want to. There's got to be a real good reason. And they needed me home on Saturday for a variety of reasons. So there's that. Know before you go, know what you're getting into, and you can be paranoid about being completely hidden. But that fear will usually drive poor decisions rather than you operate from a place of, if they want me, they're going to find me. They probably already know who I am. What do I want them to look at? That's going to give you a lot more strength, a lot more confidence, and it gives you the ability to hide in plain sight, because brazen people are either, people who are brazenly committing crimes are quickly caught, and the rest of us, we just give them nothing to see except beautiful asses up and down our timeline that gets us new followers. I love that person found me through that hashtag and was like, this is exactly the community I've been looking for. I'm not an organizer. I hadn't thought of this as a community. I just wanted to be a single point of contact for people who might not have one, because I know what it's like to call for help from the people who are supposed to love you most in the middle of the night, only to realize that, hey, these people never, despite the fact that I'm their child and I'm not home, they never have their ringer on. That's a hurtful, painful thing. If there's no one else you can call, you can always come for me. I will always come for you. So what happened on Saturday was really, really scary. And I don't want to downplay that in any way. I do want to give kudos to everybody who went and showed up anyway. That's amazing. And I'm going to beg everybody else to go easy on the organizers for Sunday, not just because my first and I guess my favorite protest kid, Iris Butler, is one of the co-organizers of that event. Her co-organizer and their speakers, none of them felt comfortable in light of what happened. I've seen some critiques on social media about this. I would gently like to remind you that the organizers of this event, which was a National Coming Out Day, are Black and they're queer. And we need to be really cautious when we're coming after Black women, when we're coming after queer women, when we're coming after Black and queer women, Black trans women, Black queer trans women, Black queer trans disabled women. There are lots and lots and lots of layers when it comes to intersectionality. And not every event can pivot quickly and easily to virtual. I respect the fact that they felt like safety had been compromised, and I'm going to beg you to do the same and think twice. It's very disappointing. I hate my National Coming Out Day too. I wanted to go see those gay cheerleaders. You want to go see those gay cheerleaders. Who doesn't want to see gay cheerleaders? That's exciting. But I just beg you to be a little bit cautious before coming at them hard. No one was prepared for what happened on Saturday, and no one could have predicted where it was going to go, which is why the National Day of Indigenous Action, they canceled too. And their types of actions could not easily go virtual. And I'm not saying we should criticize them, but if you're criticizing one but not the other, can we please make it about your disappointment? I am so disappointed this happened. I am so frustrated I didn't get to see the gay cheerleaders. And let's put that frustration where it belongs, on the people who ruined Saturday by showing up and being buttheads, then on the organizers who spent months, and guys, they did work for months planning this incredible event, these Black queer women putting themselves out there to be doxxed and harassed, and people crawl out of the woodwork and say horrifying things to them. To any Black person who tries to create an event and puts himself out there as a public figure is basically inviting, or doing so with the full knowledge that they are risking hate mail and hate language to come their way from total strangers. Let's not compound that by sending similar type of anger from friendlies. Let's put our anger where it belongs. There are people, there are targets you can hit. There are people who will listen. And I would really, really love to make your voice heard, but let's make sure when we're firing at each other that we're being constructive and we're being really, they call it friendly fire for a reason. Let's make sure that it's making the situation better, but expressing our disappointment and our anger in ways that could maybe lead to a more robust plan. Maybe it means from this point forward, every organizer from now until it's safe again plans every event with a plan B in mind. And because it's hard to communicate to everyone. How do you, other than changing the Facebook status, and not everybody uses Facebook, or putting it on Twitter, and things are lost on Twitter all the time, how do you communicate to everyone who plans to go that, hey, this thing has been canceled or moved virtual? There are no easy answers to this. So I beg you to remember, like, it's always easier when you're thinking about it instead of actually doing it. And let's give Black women all of the grace and all of the understanding in the world. More grace and understanding than we tend to give to white people when we downplay and excuse the things they do, like teaching our children in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue without that beautiful second line, and then 1495 he committed genocide, because that's exactly what he did. And I'm just waiting for my kids to come home. Poetry I can't read, and we're going to have yet another really uncomfortable conversation about why that's a damn lie. But let's be cautious about criticizing Black women and teachers too, but I am going to be undoing a lot of damage to my kids' brains. And I guess that's the final note about Plan B. Like, not only do organizers would be well advised from this point forward to be ready to pivot to virtual as the danger increases, we need to in turn plan to pivot to virtual and say, I want to have this experience. And I get that it's COVID and we all want to go out of the house, but the onus really has to be on us too, to say, hey, there's this thing I want to do. Wow, there was a shooting yesterday. I wonder if all these Black women are really going to want to show up in public. I'm going to check and see if this event has gone virtual, and then get on there and do that. Okay. So let's us be better so that they don't stop organizing. We need all the Black leadership we can get, and that's going to happen with support. That support starts with saying, okay, if you're going to always have a plan B for virtual, I'm always going to be looking and checking and doing my work to make sure that I can show up for you, whether in person or virtual, however you ask us to do it. Black leadership, we're really sorry we haven't listened sooner, because here we are fighting for your freedom on land that we stole. Yay, 2020. That's pretty much everything I had to say now about the Denver protest news, other than I'm going to be putting a link down here in the comments before I go respond to the comments. When I go posting all my comments, tonight is the big vote at City Council. Remember, defunding the police starts with budget changes, and we want to make some budget changes. And tonight is the big vote on the Allied Security contract. Jeff Campbell is going to be joining me in critiquing a lot of the stuff that he sees and hears. Jeff is one of the leaders From Allies to Abolitionists, and that whole group has a whole lot to say about abolition, and I am here for every word of it. I hope that you will be too. Since City Council only gives, in a good week, maybe 10 slots for public input, I'm going to be extending that, because the first hour of these is frankly, it's boring. I could go to the bathroom, put my kids to bed, come back and not have missed anything, because it's all stuff that had already been agreed and decided on in committee the week prior, and it's a rubber stamp in that first hour or so. It's that second and third hour, as we get close to 7:30, 8 o'clock, when things start heating up and the votes start happening, which is after people have tapped out and left. We're begging you. We're going to try to, we really would love to have enough public commentary that we could stay open open and going all the way until that vote comes, because you know city council watches my live streams, especially when I tag them in it. They want to see how people are responding. Show them it is our civic duty not just to vote, but to use our voice and tell them what we want them to do as our elected representatives who are paid multiple times more than we are for these jobs. I mean, they make $125,000 a year, y'all. You make $125,000 a year? Raise your hand if so. It's not a bad job. It is literally their job to represent you, and they cannot do that if you do not give them something to listen to, like a really strongly worded opinion. And I'm here for all those opinions too. So we're going to be putting a link down here. If you do not, I'm not sure if I'm going to be downtown yet or not, leaning towards yes, but whether or not you are there in person, I will be able to send you a link so that you can give your public input on all of my platforms. And if you want to do so anonymously, we'll have a mechanism for that as well. We don't have to have your name, your face, or your voice. We'll talk you through all of that in the sign-up sheet. So need to show up in one way or another for city council tonight and let them know this $25 million contract needs to go to a locally owned, Black owned company that knows something about private security. If we're going to have this contract, let's give it to people who are less likely to kill the most vulnerable around us, which would really be some Black women. If there's a Black women's security company, I'm here for that. Nominate them, bring them forward. Let's take this contract away from Allied. They do not deserve it. A little murder is still too much murder when it comes to security. If you're letting people die, they're dying on your watch. What are we paying you for? So, I said pig and snout. It's pig and sprout. EXIF is an easy tool. Yes, back to the metadata to wiping your asses. Give us ass photos, but wipe them first. Wipe them using EXIF. It's an easy tool for wiping metadata and seeing what metadata looks like. For those who don't know, it's your location, what kind of camera you're using, what kind of internet you're using to send to transit. It's amazing how much is captured in metadata and how much you have going through your backlogs over time. It's how Apple and Google cannot just identify faces, because I mean, if Apple can group all the photos of your mom, imagine what the police can do with all the photos of you all over the city, using the RTD, going to a game at Coors Field, the security footage collected from a restaurant across the street from where the shooting happened. It's a lot. It's a lot. So not saying you have to be like totally covered head to toe every time you go out, but you don't have to make it too easy on anyone either. And yes, pig and sprout. I said pig and snout. Sorry, whatever. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's it for the Denver Protest News Lunch Edition. You're coached. You are loved. You're winning at life. Thank you for sharing all of your beautiful booties. I am positive that your bodies are the most beautiful. My protest kids are the best kids. I've never seen an ugly ass, and it ain't about to start. Send more, though. Let's give those QAnon motherfuckers something to look at if they're going to come troll my timeline. And right now, my timeline's so pretty. Have a good one, y'all. See you this evening.